हाय फ्रेंड्स। कैसे हैं आप लोग? थैंक you for all your subscriptions, likes and comment. Moving forward on this channel, today we are going to talk about the viruses. Since corona or prior to that, everyone is hearing viruses. Just we thought that we can give a session in which we will tell there are different types of viruses. In this session we're going to tell about the overview of the viruses and how the virus intelligence work, and then we'll focus on the coronavirus, how corona infect our body system, so we come to have this pandemic. So today for me on this discussion I have Vamsi Ratnala. So currently he is working in the GS Associate as Knowledge Management Associate. Prior to this we are in the both MS Biotech in Naipur Mohali, so we are friends from there. So I just like to ask Vamsi to please turn on his camera so we can begin this session. So hi Vamsi, how are you?
I'm doing good. How are you, Shivu?
Fine, fine. Thanks for coming for the session. Huh?
Welcome, welcome. We'll be talking about what are the basic features of viruses, and since we have been talking a lot about coronavirus since the past 11 to 12 months, and it has been a tough time for all of us, so it becomes very necessary that we know the unknown gaps of this virus and how know more about this pandemic, because it's the only way by which we can fight it. And some things more like how this virus impacts our body. And last but not the least, the most interesting part is whether soap or sanitizer is much better in fighting the COVID-19. I guess that has kept us curious for a long time. So I will be sharing with you my thoughts and views on this. So I think we can get started. So if we talk about viruses, it has been a long-standing debate whether virus is a living or non-living substance. So when we talk about viruses, these are basically particles. We don't call them organisms. These are particles having DNA or RNA, any kind of genetic material encapsulated in a protein covering. So there are lots and lots of different types of viruses, and in fact, we are living among viruses and other microbes. And we are fortunate enough that most of the viruses don't cause any harm to these, to us. And there's a specific reason for this. If we can debate on which is the most intelligent species in this world, then the virus is, I believe the virus is definitely going to be one of the most intelligent creatures if we consider it to be a living organism. So, if we assume that it is really a living organism, then uh, when we talk about the viral intelligence, there are some certain factors like, and the most important and interesting feature about this is how viruses are able to cross the species barrier. So, crossing species barrier, it basically means we have generally seen that a virus which infects a particular species like a bird, it usually do not infect the other species or other organisms. Or, so the problem arises when it starts infecting other organisms of different species. And it is much more easier for a virus of chimpanzee to infect a human as compared to virus of a bird infecting a human. And this is because the viral cell surface has a lot of protein spikes or receptors which uh, actually due to mutation it gets changed a lot. And for case of virus, the mutation rate is very high. And when such mutations start occurring among a million mutations, one or two mutations may trigger a drastic change in the virus, and it may cause a change in the protein surface. And because of this change, it may develop some features which help that virus to go and latch upon the cell surface and bind to it tightly on the cell surface of other organisms. To put it in a nutshell, so mutations are the root cause which help a virus to, and these are all chance mutations. No virus can direct in which way it has to mutate. So it is all a chance phenomenon. And Because of these mutations, they get the ability to uh, latch onto other cells surfaces. So this is what we uh, call as spillover infections. And the COVID-19 pandemic is one of the best examples how the viruses can infect other organisms. It was, if we focus on the different sources of COVID-19, then even camels have been one of the sources, even the pangolins are one of the sources. So there are multiple organisms which we consider to be a source. So, so COVID-19 is pretty much dangerous. If we talk about for a virus, it is a parasite, and for every parasite, it can't be too deadly for the host, because it the basic requirement of a parasite is that it needs the host for its survival and for its nutrition. And the virus is also a parasite in the similar features, because it needs an organism for its multiplication and for its food or the nutrition purposes. And if we consider why some viral diseases are much more deadly and why COVID is not much more deadly as compared to Ebola, then definitely it gives an answer that there's a surprising difference between Ebola and COVID-19. For Ebola, the infection rate, it was not much infectious, or it was not spreading as much as the COVID-19, because the fatality rate on Ebola was much higher as compared to COVID-19, whereas COVID-19, the case fatality rate is way too lower than Ebola, just because if the host gets died too fast, then the virus can't spread to much more organisms. So that makes a direct sense why COVID-19 is less fatal and much more infectious and is spreading at a much faster rate. So coming to the next section, how the viruses actually enter into a body and how they impact our body. What does it actually do that it is becoming so serious for this body? So before I start this video, it's a short sample video which clearly illustrates how this virus impacts our body. So it, just like any other virus, it gets into our body through different routes. Like the most likely route is through the nasal route or the respiratory route by which the virus enters, this particular virus enters. And once it gains entry into there are these are all tiny cells of, or the tiny epithelial cells of our, and once they get infected, it disrupts the normal communication method in which the immune system works. The first response to any kind of infection is definitely the uh, rise in temperature, body temperature, and it happens in case of COVID-19 as well. And for any disease to get defeated by our immune system, it needs to be the immune system cells needs to properly regulate and coordinate among themselves. It is a very tightly regulated system, and but the unfortunate thing in this case is that the COVID-19 is causing confusion uh, among these cells, and as a result of which they the immune system cell behave abnormally, and in doing so, the normal cells of our body are also getting infected. Let me just play this video for you for better understanding. So these tiny particles are viral particles. The red infected cells are releasing much more viruses, and it is uh, causing a disruption of the normal communication system of these immune cells. And as a result of which, the immune system, just get go crazy, and they just cause overreaction to this sort of infection, and this pushes them into a fighting mode. So this is something which happens, and they are very attack prone mode, and they get into very attack prone mode, and it is really very dangerous for the normal cells as well. So Let me just play this video. So in this video, we will see how there are different types of immune cells, like the killer T cells and the natural killer cells. So here I have taken the example of how a killer T cell, or rather to be precise, how an infected or a over exaggerated infected T cell is responding to this infection. So this is the killer T cell, it latches on to the infected cell. But one issue with these is that it will also go and communicate with the healthy cells that they also need to commit suicide, or it will also cause the death of the normal cells. In doing so, many of the normal cells and tissues of our body get damaged. But eventually, if our immune system is strong enough, then definitely it will clear off the entire or most of the COVID-19 viruses from us, from our body. So the immune system has a lot of potential in it to get over these viruses. But actually, what the biggest problem is that, let me just go to the other cell. So guys, so let me put it in another way. For a patient who gets infected on day 5 and has started developing symptoms on day 5, definitely he is fighting, his immune system is fighting against this virus. And one issue with this infection is that it expands a lot of, it wastes a lot of resources of this immune system. A lot of immune cells also get died because they get over crazy for killing the cells, and in doing so a lot of cells get decreased in the immune system. And if a patient is slightly recovering, at that point of time, it is very much important that the patient needs to get uh, protection from other kind of opportunistic infections or opportunistic microorganisms. For example, um, pneumonia causing bacteria. So this is something which clearly, uh, which can cause a lot of damage to the COVID infected patients, because the body is already in a recovery phase and the number of immune cells is less. And in such a critical state, the these bacteria, if they attack this our bodies, then definitely the immune system will not have any further potential to defeat the attacking bacteria, and that is the most fatal part of this infection. So this is how it completely impacts our body. And also one important feature of this is that we have heard a lot of people die because of pneumonia, and this can happen due to different other infections also. But the immune system, while fighting against this virus, causes the release of a lot of cytokines and other chemical messengers, which causes the filling of fluids within the alveoli, and it is like drowning within our own fluids, and hence the patient is um, hence the patient gets into a very critical state. So coming to the last part, so we have been debating a lot that what is better, the liquid soaps or the hand sanitizers. Today, luckily in our markets, we have a different range of sanitizers. But I still remember that during the early stages of this COVID in our country, we have faced a lot of issues. There was scarcity of the sanitizers. So let's start with this. So basically, the soap, what actually soap is having a lot of amphiphilic molecules. The amphiphilic molecules will have the hydrophobic and the hydrophilic end, and such type of molecules are amphiphiles. And why I'm saying this, because the external or the lipid bilayer of the cell membrane is also amphiphilic in nature. So when we are using the liquid soap, it's like these soap particles are contesting against the already existing amphiphilic molecules in our lipid bilayer. And because of this competition, the cell membrane of the virus gets disrupted. Let me just demonstrate it with this preview. So it's a comparison between the amphiphiles and lipids, and over here we can see how these amphiphiles compete for the lipids, and in doing so they disrupt the cell membrane, and the virus particles will totally get de-enveloped. And not only this, after this process, the soup molecules or the amphiphiles get uh, the different viral RNA or the genetic material or the different substances within the viral cell. It just coats all around these particles and forming tiny bubbles, which can be easily removed by simple hand washing. So this is how the soaps function. Now, if we go to the sanitizers, so the major ingredient is the 70% ethanol, and it is very much justified that a proper or an accurate hand sanitizer should have 70% ethanol for its maximum effectiveness as a proper antimicrobial agent or a sanitizing agent. So, in a nutshell, if I put it in place, is ethanol or a sanitizer works more like giving it a shock. It's like a shock therapy, giving it a quick trimmer-like activity for the virus cell. Let me just show it by you. Okay, so sorry. So this ethanol acts on the different spike proteins, spike proteins in the cell membrane of or the external membrane or the layer of this virus, and it destabilizes those structures, those proteins. And since we know that ethanol has a destabilizing nature on this on the various proteins, and hence the spike proteins gets destabilized, and in doing so it's a very pretty good example of this. Like it's like removing the nails from a building and giving a big shock to it, and suddenly the entire building will collapse. And it's similarly how ethanol is going to act, or it acts over the virus particles. So it's like a giving a big shock to the virus, and suddenly the virus gets killed like this. So there's a difference we need to understand. In case of COVID-19, definitely the liquid hand wash is a much better way in tackling this, because not all viruses are same, and sanitizer do work well, but there's a limitation to which the sanitizers work, because sanitizers most of the sanitizers either don't have the 70% ethanol, and also one more important thing is that sanitizers excuse me, in case of the liquid detergent, it is like if we have good availability of water, then definitely it will wipe off entire COVID-19 particles, even the smallest of the genetic material in the virus. So it's a much more efficient way to get the virus off from our hands or the body surfaces, whereas the ethanol will just wipe it off, and it will just kill the viruses and by destabilizing the proteins. But as compared to COVID-19, the hand sanitizers have been compared much more effective with other kind of viruses. But in case of COVID-19, I mean, if you compare the liquid soap and the sanitizer, definitely the sanitizers have a lesser hand as compared to the soap. So I'll leave the rest for the debate. It's entirely on you. definitely sanitizers have an upper hand in case where there is lesser availability of water. So I will leave it on you. You may share your opinion, which is better, the soap or the sanitizer, but this is the overall mechanism how the soap and the sanitizers work together or work in helping to wipe off the COVID-19. So I hope you all like this. That's it from my end.
Yeah, thanks, Vamshi. In your debate of sanitizer and soap, I want to add one point just because in case of sanitizer, it also depends on how our hands or how the surface where we're applying. It's greasy or it's dirty, or means
Exactly.
it's now it's a common thing, but it's also there are some other factors on which the activity of sanitizers will depend. While in case of soap, I think it's a upper hand. So
Exactly. Exactly.
Uh, so, Amshit, thanks a lot for making us understand about the viruses, how corona infects our cells, or why our lung cells are more prone to coronaviruses, and how it fools our immune system. So, thank you a lot, and thank you very much for making an understanding or participating in the debate, which is better, sanitizers or soaps. So, thanks you a lot. If you can ask our viewers to subscribe, like, and comment, it will be helpful for us just from your words.
Sure, sure. So I would request everyone. It's a great initiative from Shubhanshu, and it will really help a lot of the public, and it will create awareness among the public. And we are collaborating in bringing much more uh, videos, and we would
Speakers.
just like you all to like, subscribe, and motivate us. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Thanks a lot, everyone. Thank you, Vamshi. Bye bye.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Bye.